Money Honey here, talking about top places that I have been traveling around the world. I have had the privilege to travel to 17 different places. On the scale of how many countries there are in the world, that is quite small, but I do feel really blessed to have been able to experience different cultures and to see these amazing places that I have been to. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Tokyo in Japan. Now, I was not in Japan long, and it was 2017, which is 6 years ago now, but it's still on the top of my list because it was just mind-blowing. For me, when we got into the city in Tokyo, it felt like stepping into a kind of advanced world. I'd never really seen anything like it, especially when I was on Shibuya Crossing. I was just like, whoa! You see this in films or in popular culture, but to experience it was really cool. The partner and I love theme parks, amusement parks. We like roller coasters. So while we were in Tokyo, we decided to hit up Disney Sea. I don't know if we went during a time where there was a certain event that was going on, because there were loads of, I'd say, middle school age and high school age girls there, and they were like twinning or tripleting or like quadrupleting or in a group of 5. I don't know if it's like this all the time, but there was about 30, 40, 50 different groups dressed the same, and they were in the queue and they were like playing these little cutesy games together, and I was like, oh my gosh, adorable. We stayed in a really tiny hotel room. Like, it was so tiny, but weirdly didn't feel tiny when you were in there. It was my first experience with a smart toilet.
Please log in with name now.
And I was like, whoa, it's talking, and it's just more advanced than any toilet that I ever came in contact with. So that was nuts, but in a good way. I wasn't yet vegan by the time I got to Tokyo. I was just vegetarian. But if you hit up Amaye Yokocho, I'm told there's amazing foodies for us. A big part of my travel is the shopping. And you know how much of it I did in Tokyo? 0. Go and do it for me. I lived through you. The next on my list is Copenhagen, which is in Denmark. So I did have the pleasure of having colleagues from across Europe, and some of my favorite of the colleagues were the Nordic colleagues. I was representing Ireland, and because of Brexit, the UK was no longer part of the mix. So Ireland was kind of on its own, and the Nordic countries really welcomed me in. The majority of the places on my list are the Nordic countries, and that's really funny because I do not like the cold at all. Denmark is a really small country, fascinating history, like a lot of the small countries that have branches. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. I have been to Amsterdam twice, and I love Amsterdam. I love cycling around. I didn't expect Copenhagen to have a similar infrastructure with cycling. Mick and I, we went during Halloween, and I just had a blast. I am a plant-based girl, so I'm vegan. Traveling can sometimes not be easy for someone like me, but there were loads of places that had plant-based, vegan-friendly options, and they were delicious, so I enjoyed that. And then the hotel that we stayed in, they had this opportunity, for lack of a better word, to rent bikes.
Sorry.
We rented the bikes for 2 days. The fact that I'm riding on the bike and there's rules of the road for cyclists and they're separate from cars, I just loved it. I had an absolutely amazing time. Love that place. Some jewels that you absolutely need to try in Copenhagen. Of course, you get the touristy Visit Little Mermaid, which is cool. The Tivoli Gardens, which is really expensive for what it is, just so you know. There's the castle with the guards in it that you can go visit, and loads of museums and galleries. But one thing that is amazing is the shopping. If you're into secondhand and vintage clothing like I am, you're gonna blow a hole in your pocket in Denmark. The next on the list is probably my favorite place of all time. Iceland. Before I went to Iceland, I was exhilarated about the country. And I owe that to two things. First of all, it's those colleagues that I told you about. And then the film Eurovision Song Contest came out.
What is this?
It is a costume I made.
Well, it's bad.
Rachel McAdams, Will Ferrell, one of my favorite films. I love that film so much. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. So, you know, I was just rearing to go to Iceland. And not only did Iceland not let me down, it exceeded all my expectations. I mean, it was just absolutely incredible. It's a small country. I only went to Reykjavik. I went in 2022 in May. I am there in the city center, and there's maybe 10 other people in the city center, and it's just normal for Reykjavik. I never have been to a capital city and in the center, the heart of it, and not be, you know, surrounded by tons and tons of people. There, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I did have trouble sleeping because the sun didn't fully go down at all when I was there. You could see mountains literally from the room that I was in. Everywhere you look, you can see them with the ice cap on top of it. Expensive place. Absolutely nuts for the price. But again, they had vegan options for me, which are really cool, trendy places to go to, and it tasted really nice. They don't really tip in Iceland because everything is expensive, so I liked that. They have a lot of myths and folklore, even certain things with trolls and the elves that you can see in their laws. The best tour that I ever went on was in Iceland, and it was the folk tour and myths, and it was so fascinating. I learned so much, and again, it was reminiscent of Eurovision.
Elves again.
Don't do it.
You know, I have nothing to do with elves.
Lars, shut your mouth, or the elves will shut it for you.
And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is the best place ever. I loved it. Iceland, oh my gosh. I did get the chance to go to the famous Blue Lagoon. And that was so nice. Just from start to finish when I was there, it was an amazing time. And I actually didn't want to leave. And I was there for like 2 weeks. It was great. One thing that I didn't mention is the shopping. Some of my absolute favorite pieces in my wardrobe have come from Reykjavik. It's actually known as this place where all of these really cool pieces get donated and left. So you can find some absolute bangers in secondhand vintage shops for clothing. It will be the price of your rent, possibly, but you'll look so cute. Next on the list is another Nordic country, and it is Norway. I did get to visit 3 different places in Norway. So I went to Oslo, I went to Lillehammer, and I went to Tromsø. Might be butchering all of these names. Of the 3, Oslo was definitely my least favorite, so I won't talk about that too much. In Lillehammer, I honestly have never been in snow my whole life. There was one time in London when it kind of snowed a little, maybe there was like some ice the next morning. There was one time here in Ireland. I've been here nearly 6 years now, so there was only one time where it like snowed and things were canceled. But aside from that, I've never really been in snow. So the whole 3 or 4 days that I was in Lillehammer, it just snowed and there was snow all on the ground, and I opened the curtains and it's all just white. It was like, whoa. I went in February of 2023. Tromsø was up at the top and snow everywhere, pretty freezing. It's icy. But what really propelled this place to be on the top of the places that I've been is the fact that I got to see the Northern Lights. Thank you, God. That was so cool. It was quite funny because my colleague was saying, yeah, I hope you get to see them. And I was like, oh, and do you see them a lot? She's like, yeah, every day, just look up. You know, it's kind of nothing when you live there. It's actually not something that is very common if you don't live there. So if you are on holiday for just a little bit of time, it's not like you can just go outside and look up and they're there if the conditions are not right. So we had to take this, I want to say a cable car, but you know, it's like attached to wires. We had to take it up the mountain, and when we were up there, you go outside, you're in the cold and you're looking up and you're hoping that you see them, and it is not guaranteed. As soon as Mick and I stepped off of the car, we went outside and we're like waiting with the other people, and then all of a sudden you look up and there's a tiny bit, and then after that tiny bit it just went.
That's
Whoa! It was so cool to be able to see that in my lifetime. I really, really was happy. Tromsø is known as one of the best places for Northern Light enthusiasts. So if you're busting to see Aurora Borealis yourself, I definitely plan a trip. There's dog sledding and reindeer sledding if you're into that. There's secondhand shops as well, but of all of the Nordy places, it is definitely the most expensive and almost not worth it, though I did get a couple of nice things. Now let's go somewhere hot. Greece, baby. Rhodes is how we would say it in English. Rhodos is how the locals told me to say it. I and Mick, we both are not holiday maker kind of people. We are not someone who would go to a resort for 2 weeks and just stay in that area, but we totally had this like beach holiday when we were there in Rhodos, and I lived for it. Absolutely. I'm not a beach person. I don't really get in the water, but I was like swimming in that ocean every single day. There was a place called Calathea. Oh my gosh. So there's the ocean. And I think as well where we were, it's where the Mediterranean meets another sea. But in Calathea, you actually have to pay to get in. So it's a beach that leads out to the ocean, but there's a human-made type of pool. And Calathea is where all of these natural springs are meant to be. Mick and I went off to the side where no other humans were, and they had all of these little, maybe broken or abandoned seats. You have to pay for everything in there. But the seats, because they were out of use, we built this little hut with it. I really wish I would have got a picture. But it was so fun because it's hot, so we're going into our little hut and then coming out and getting into the water. It was just amazing. We went to a place called Butterfly Valley. To be honest with you, I am from California. I've seen some gorgeous butterflies that are colorful. There in Butterfly Valley, they were what we back home call moths. You know, the just little brown ones. So I thought that was Moth Valley, but whatever. Call it butterflies, okay. It was really hot when we were there. We went in August. Best beach that I've ever been to in my life because, again, I said I don't like beaches. I'm not a sand person. Everything at that beach was made out of pebbles. It was so nice and nice to walk on. I just had an incredible time. My goodness, that was fabulous. One thing that I missed out is about the food. I learned about something called a gamista. They had this green pepper and this tomato and have all of these different herbs and flavors and I think rice inside, but it was just so good. I loved it. I was having that pretty much the whole trip. I didn't do much shopping when I was in Greece. The little things that I did buy were just wraps for the beach because I pretty much wore a swimsuit the whole time. Definitely check out the sites there, like the Colosseum, that's from I think 2nd BC, and the Colossus, Old Town, the ancient ruins. You're gonna love it. I hope to travel so much more in my life, and maybe this list will change, but there you have it. Those are my top places that I have been thus far, and I want to hear from you about yours. Send a comment about the best places that you've been. Subscribe if you're into it. Hit the like button and check out the posts on Instagram too. Why not? Love you. Bye.